Hello and welcome back to the Honest Lab Horror Show, the show that we bring to you each and every Friday night. Why we do this on a Friday night, I don't have a t-shirt on tonight, but Friday night is horror night. For my guest here, who is from across the pond, we used to have a channel, well we still have a channel, but it's called Channel 4, and on a Friday night after the watershed at 10 o'clock, they used to put out all the classic horror movies. That's where you got to see them all for a freebie. It was great. So we kind of put this out at 10 o'clock as a little reminder to that time in the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. So it's grand. But tonight we are joined by we're joined by a very special guest who is an actor and a stuntman and the man behind the mask of the 2002 smashing crossover Freddy versus Jason. This is Mr. Ken Kirzinger. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. Very good. Good to see you, Greg.
Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come on.
No problem. Yeah, Fridays, you're bringing back a bit of nostalgia for me because when I was very young, my parents would go to bed about 11 o'clock and about midnight came all the thriller chiller theaters and stuff. So I would sneak out of bed and crawl up close to the TV set, turn the volume way down low because we didn't have headsets and
Nice.
watch movies like The Fly and
The
all the old
Cronenberg one.
yeah and
Savage.
and then of course Friday holds a special significance for me with Friday the 13th. So
Yeah, I mean, where better to start than there. Um,
yeah,
Obviously, a lot of fans have a love-hate relationship with Freddy versus Jason. Not for reasons in the film alone, but how did you go to come into that movie?
um, well, so I got the job. I was being interviewed for the stunt coordinator on the show. So when I was talking to the producer, he asked me if I would audition to play Jason. And I said, "What about Kane?" And they just said, "Well, they want to go a different direction." And so I did the audition, and Ronnie, you saw this really cheesy tape of me wearing a cheap Jason mask. They read the opening scene and had me react to the girl swimming in the lake with a close up of my eyes, and then they had me walk around the room, and I had a short meeting with Ronnie, and then I had the job.
I mean, like you couldn't say no. That was always going to be a box office smash. Obviously, it took a lot of hatred from fans that were waiting to see, obviously Kane versus Robert, that obviously never came. But
It's
for me,
funny,
I really
I
enjoyed the movie.
well, and it's funny you say that because I haven't experienced that. Um, I of course people aren't going to come up to me and tell me that they hated that Kane wasn't in the movie. The worst I heard was, we know Kane. He did four. We were expecting him, and we like him, and but we think he did a great job. So there, I guess there are haters out there, or maybe they still are. I don't know, but I don't
I
get
mean,
to see that very often, so when people bring it up, it's like I'm sure there's people out there that hated Gone with the Wind and The Godfather. So what are you gonna do?
there is one particular person that I seen do a review on Jaws that gave it 1 star and says that it was boring because there wasn't as much shark in it. So there are people that are entitled to their opinion, however wrong they are. Um, Sorry, my eye is leaking. I'm smothering with a cold here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so yeah, like I really enjoyed it. I remember I must have been 11. It wouldn't have been long after seeing Nightmare on Elm Street 1. I seen Jason Goes to Hell, and
nice.
obviously the build came from there. Now that was years beforehand, but before we got it on TV.
Yeah,
But when the hand comes out and takes the mask, and then everything went quiet from there, and then the build for Freddy versus Jason kind of just came from nowhere.
right.
Well, I don't know what it was like for you in the States, but we had very little build to it, and then all of a sudden it ramped up.
Yeah, that had a lot to do with Jeff Katz, one of the producers. As I understand things, he really pushed to get Freddy versus Jason made. And when you think about it, it's just such a natural. I mean, when they'd done the Frankenstein movies and the werewolf movies, everybody wanted to pair them up, and so it was just a natural thing to do. And they went through 10 years between, I think, the claw coming out of the ground and grabbing the mask to several incarnations of a script for Freddy versus Jason, and they finally found a really good script and a unique director. I got to say, I mean, hiring Ronnie Yu, a Hong Kong director, to direct a North American kind of classic horror movie wasn't something that people expected, but I really think he added a lot of flavor to the movie that a North American director might not have done.
I mean, he kept to a point that some of it was camp, that kept with the themes of certain, obviously, Fridays and certain Nightmare on Elm Street, which was good. But he put his own twist on it as well, bringing in, obviously, the girl from Destiny's Child, whose name I can't remember now.
Kelly Rowland.
That's the one, yeah. Whose
Yeah.
name just blanks me. Do you know what I mean? So it's not. They went a little bit of star power, and then obviously they brought yourself in behind the mask. They brought Robert back, which I think everyone at that time kind of knew it was going to be his last, um, unless there was a second one, because you couldn't really go another Nightmare on Elm Street. But for you to come into that franchise must have been huge for you.
I didn't know how big it was. To me, it was just another job until we started making the movie, and then I started hearing from relatives and people, because I'm not on social media. I've never have been on social media. So if you see any social media that's got my name on it, it's not me. But so I didn't know. I just started hearing from people, "Oh, this is a big deal. You're playing Jason," and I had worn the Jason costume on number 8, doubling Kane, and Kane had asked me, he goes, "Don't tell anybody you doubled me." So of course I didn't say anything for years and stuff, and so it wasn't a big deal to me. It was just another suit job. I call them suit jobs. I've been a werewolf, a Sasquatch, a robot, zombies, and
Behind the mask.
when they hired me for the job, it was like, oh, okay, this is a nice cushy job. It's a big budget movie, and I've got a stunt double, and no dialogue, and so I just had to put out my version of the character, and with Ronnie Yu's direction, and have fun with it. And I had experience because I worked on number 8 as the stunt coordinator, the stunt double, and the fry cook in the diner that gets killed, and so I had experience with the franchise, and it was just a fun project. I got to say, it was one of the most fun things I've done in my career.
That's awesome, because I know I've said it on a few shows. The horror fandom is probably the best in the world, because you could get like sci-fi people that will like Star Wars and hate Star Trek and things, where horror fans will kind of recognize there is a lot of terrible horror movies, but people will still watch them expecting it to be that way.
They're
You're
so
not gonna
bad
go
they're
and watch
good.
a terrible, yeah. You're not gonna go and watch a terrible sci-fi movie because it's gonna annoy you. They take it far too seriously. And I think there's a lot of that was brought into Freddy versus Jason that you had to expand out a little bit. Like I loved what the script done to bring you in to get people afraid to bring Freddy back, which was a brilliant idea and a great way to do it. And obviously Freddy controlling your mother
Right.
was genius.
Yeah, it was a great idea. Yeah.
And the kills in it is just savage. Now, I put down the best kill I've seen Jason do was in Jason X, which was obviously Kane with the liquid nitrogen. But I have your one at second, where you have your man in the bed and you fold the bed up.
Right. Yes.
Oh,
That seems to be that was my favorite. And it seems to be a fan favorite. Whenever I speak to them, yeah, it's easy to pick that one out.
Oh, it's bad. Or when you've killed the young fella's dad, his head just falls off.
Right, right. Yeah, well, the bed thing was just not what anybody expected, right? It came out of the blue. You expect Jason to stab the guy, but then to fold the bed was just a great sort of coup de grace.
I don't expect anything really from Jason. I've seen him pick someone up in a sleeping bag and whack them off a tree loads.
Right, right. I think that
So,
was Kane's favorite kill or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of creative ones now. I'll always maintain that Freddy is still the most creative one of the lot, with all the ones that he had throughout the movies. But that's just my preference.
Well, you know what? I
Um,
mean, he has an advantage there because they're in his dream world, so he can do a lot more things. Whereas Jason is in the practical world, where it's he has to rely on the practical things he has around him, and the laws of gravity and physics and stuff apply. Whereas with Freddy, it
Most of the
doesn't.
time.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's just it was the only two that you could really put one on one out of all the slashers. Like, I know there's people that go on and they're like, "Oh, we'd love to see Ash brought into that Freddy versus Jason." It's like, "But why?" I says, "This is a conversation that popped up on one of the groups I was in the other day," and I was like, "It's not a viable thing." I says, "The two boys would just tear him to shreds," and I love Ash.
Oh,
I says,
so
"It's
you,
not
you don't you don't think it would work with Freddy versus Jason versus Ash?
no, no, I don't think so. I just like he's a human after all, that kind of way.
Right. Yeah.
Like, he's
Uh,
funny and he's great and he survives Evil Dead and all that, but
yeah.
not in that kind of world
Well, I
for me.
think, the comic book that came out was pretty popular, and I know that, people have come to me on the regular to say how disappointed they were that that didn't get made because right after Freddy versus Jason came out, Jeff Katz, the producer, came to Robert and I and Ronnie Yu and said, "Hey, we're going to go again. This is a big hit, number one 2 weekends in a row, and we want to do Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. Are you guys in?" And we all said yes. Well, I can't speak for Ronnie Yu, but I know that Robert and I were keen to do it. And then they couldn't work out the rights with Raimi, who was wanting to do the series with Ash, and
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure how keen Bruce Campbell was to do it either, which seems funny to me if he wasn't into it. But yeah, I think a lot of people wanted to see that movie, and
I'd have watched it. I don't think it'd have worked well, but I'd have watched it.
yeah, I mean, you know what? You never know, right? Because you can have the best script, the best actors, and still make a flop.
Oh yeah,
And
oh yeah.
they call it making magic in a bottle. You never know. I mean, you can guess what the right combination is to make a hit movie and stuff like that, but you never really know. I mean, a lot of people get surprised.
Well, it can't have been as bad as the Alien versus Predator double, so that was
Well, I
terrible.
mean, again, you know what? I get people coming up to me. They say they hate Jason X. Hated it. And then you get other people who come up and
What?
say they loved it. And so,
It all depends on what kind of horror fan you were for that one. You know what I mean? Like, do you suspend the realms of belief? Do you know what I mean? Like, Jason's gone through 8 movies or 9 movies already where he's been killed about 64 times.
right.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Yet you can't picture him in space. Why not?
sure.
Leprechaun went to space. People love that.
Yeah, that's
Do you
probably
know what
why they made it.
I mean?
But,
Like,
yeah.
it's
I
a big guy killing people. What's the difference? You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. And you could see how creative they got with the kills in Jason in Space. And they couldn't have done that if they'd stayed at Crystal Lake, really.
It was
Um,
great.
yeah. And so, it's just funny. I know that everybody has their opinions on what would work and what wouldn't, but you never really know until you put it out there in front of people.
I couldn't wait for Freddy versus Jason after thing. I was a huge uh, Freddy fan. Like, I have a big
Yeah.
tattoo of Freddy on my arm. I actually have a Jason one as well, but
Right.
Nightmare on Elm Street was the first horror film I seen. It stuck with me as my favorite horror film.
Yeah.
So anything that came out now, apart from the 2010 one, because I won't talk about that.
Would you want to see Robert do another one?
Uh, yes, because of a fan of me, but as a film fan, I don't think he could. Not the way he used to.
Now why is that? Because of his age?
I think it's the physical toll that it'd take. Do you know what I mean? It's what, 6 or 7 hours in the chair,
Um,
uh, unless you're going CGI, but not for
yeah,
me.
I mean, these days, you could go straight CGI and you wouldn't have to put on any makeup. You wouldn't have to, they could do a lot to bring because I think a lot of what sells Robert as Freddy is the voice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I've seen him freak people out by walking in a room and laughing, doing the Freddy laugh and stuff like that, and people
It's.
instantly turn and recognize. So I think that they could get away with doing another one, Robert. And I know that they're trying to, or there's been some talk anyway. And I know that Robert has come out and said, he's getting too old, and he's got some infirmities, and which is to be expected. But I don't know. I think they could work around that and turn out another good Elm Street.
I mean, it can't be as bad as the 2010 one.
Yeah, I mean, even Robert says it was kind of unfair to the
Jackie Earl
remember the
Haley.
actor that played him, Haley? No,
Jackie Earl Haley.
yeah, Jackie Earl Haley.
I don't think he was even that bad. I think the movie just had its problems. All right, he didn't
Yeah.
look right. His voice was brilliant in it.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
there was good bits to it. Now I will say there was definitely good bits to it, but it
Right.
didn't stand up to any of the others. It's the bottom of the nine for me from the Nightmare
Yeah.
franchise.
I think it's hard for fans to accept anybody else as Freddy.
Yeah,
They'll take a new Jason, but they won't take a new Freddy, I don't think.
I think it's different because the whole way through the Friday the 13th franchise they were chopping and changing. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Obviously, you had Ari in there. You had obviously yourself and Freddy versus Jason.
I
You
think
had Kane.
nine people play Jason
Is it
over the
nine?
years,
Yeah,
something like
there's
that.
some ridiculous amount anyway. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even when you look at Mike Myers and Halloween, it's a different person almost every time.
Right.
Obviously, I know number 4 they had Josh Hartnett who was in it, and that was just awful.
Right.
But do you know what I mean? Like it behind the mask is a slight bit different to having pages and pages of dialogue where you chop and change actors. It just doesn't bring
Right.
the same degree of believability. Obviously, we've seen it in a different franchise that you're involved in, which is actually a big favorite of mine in Wrong Turn. Obviously, you had Julian Richlings and stuff in the original one, and then they all changed, and then you came in to the second one as Pa,
Yeah.
and then again every movie along the way it changed.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
you kind of see the changes
yeah, I
take
think,
effect.
yeah, with Friday the 13th, it was a low budget, uh, series of movies.
Yeah,
So just cast a stunt guy in the local area so they didn't have to pay hotel per diem. They'd save money by hiring a local stunt guy to play the part. And the character, took on a life of its own. I think, people are mostly a fan of Jason and not necessarily the people that play him. Uh,
yeah, it's the character.
yeah, the Jason character is just, and of course, Jason evolved as they changed in the movies and stuff like that. But yeah, certainly, my sense of it is that Jason has a huge fan base, and
Yeah,
the people that play him. I mean, Kane did a wonderful job of chasing the part, promoting himself, developing a fan base, uh, you know, and whereas I don't think any of the other guys that played Jason did that. And
no offense to yourself, you've done the part really well, but I think it's widely regarded that Kane is probably and has been the best Jason there has been.
well,
Um,
I think that's an opinion.
no,
I don't think.
that's just well, obviously I can't tell you that it's facts. Uh, um, for me, I would say it was Betsy Palmer, but that's a different argument to have, really, isn't it?
Uh, as far as who Betsy Palmer was, who played
Yeah.
her?
No, as in like she's obviously the ma in
Well,
the original one.
yes, yeah.
So
The actress that they hired to be in Freddy versus Jason that played the mother, really did a great job of carrying on Betsy Palmer.
yeah.
And I think she did a fantastic job. Uh,
Oh yeah, absolutely. But that's what I'm saying. Like people would say Kane is the best Jason. You could turn around and argue the fact that Betsy Palmer was the original Jason. Do you know what I mean? She never wears the mask,
oh, I
but
see.
she's the one doing the killing in the first one.
Right, right. Other than Ari jumping out of the water for the last
Yeah.
5 seconds, I guess, yeah, you could say that she was the original Jason.
So I mean, there is arguments to be had. Like there's certain characteristics that each person brought to it. And I thought Kane brought a look and whatnot. I think your version brought a lot more viciousness than most of the kills.
It's funny because one of the biggest things I hear from fans is that uh, Kane's Jason is more vicious, and my Jason had more emotional depth, um, and not that they necessarily like one or the other, but I hear the opposite of what you're saying.
Oh, well, that's just my take on it. Anyway, I always found the Friday or the Freddy versus Jason kills were just off the charts. Obviously, cutting your man in half, cutting the lad's head off, snapping the bed in half.
Uh,
Um, like it was just there was some really good ones in there.
sure, yeah, but I think uh, yeah, the kills are so important, you know,
Yeah,
and but there was I think people when Jason it goes into Freddy's dream world and he turns into the little boy, and you see Jason shaking with fear in
yeah,
Freddy's world. You wouldn't see that in a uh, you know pre Freddy versus Jason movie. So people seem to think that added more depth to the character.
yeah. It shows that vulnerable side a little bit. To be fair, but that again could be all just an imagination in your own head because Freddy controls the world you're in. So that kind of way.
Yeah, yeah. So Jason's reactions, though, in Freddy's world, be Jason's reactions, right?
Yeah, it's I see. There's a few different ways to look at that one. For me anyway.
Yeah.
For me, is he visualizing it or is visualizing it happening because Freddy's making him do it? Same way he visualized his ma being there to come back. You know what I mean?
Well,
Is he just tormenting him and then it's causing him to react in real life?
I'm thinking about the scene in Freddy's world where there's kind of like that waterfall.
Yeah,
Jason comes up, he's going to chop Freddy. All of a sudden, the water comes down that stops Jason, dead in
that's
his
why.
tracks. Kind of
That's
like
where you get the line. That's where you get the line. He is human after all, or you're
right.
afraid of something.
And then when you see him turn into a child, uh, that is Jason to me being afraid of the water as a child. Because people go, why would he be afraid of the water? Jason's never been afraid of the water. He lives in the lake, but as a child, when he drowned, he probably would
He
have been
was.
afraid of the water.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's the
him
same
as
way Freddy. Same way Freddy was afraid of fire.
and you literally see Freddy stick his claw in young Jason's head, to tap
Yeah,
into the fear that obviously Jason has overcome as an adult, but had as a child.
yeah. I don't know. It was a good take on it. Now, to be fair, I thought the script was very good. The fight scenes, the acting. Obviously, then it was reshot, and we had Doug Tate come in and play the ending scene, which was a bit strange when I'd heard that.
Well, what happened there was so they were shooting that ending in the States, and I live in Canada.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it takes uh, 2 weeks to get a work permit to go to the States from Canada.
Oh, does
Whereas
it?
Yeah, whereas you can get one right away coming from the States to Canada. So it was the immigration or the work permit wasn't they weren't going to get a work permit for me in time. So that's why they used Doug Tate to come out of the water with the head.
Yeah, I had a good chat with Doug about that as well there a couple of weeks ago when we spoke to him.
Yeah,
He's a good guy. Um,
yeah,
but yeah,
he's
obviously that's the
well
one
walked
of
out of that water with the head.
yeah, it's a very iconic scene as well because it set up the second one that obviously never came.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it kind of tells us that the battle's over, but the war isn't.
Yeah, but that was it. Was always with the way with Freddy, wasn't it? It was even when he lost, you knew he was going to be back again.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the character. I mean, the beauty of these movies is that, of course, Jason's been killed. Jason has to be a supernatural. I like Jason as a supernatural character.
Yeah, yeah,
Where
definitely.
last Friday the 13th, they showed how he could get from point A to point B without being seen. With the tunnels and the
Yeah, I didn't
practice.
like that.
And for me, I just like Jason better as a supernatural character now.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I didn't like those two new ones with the tunnels and stuff. Same way I didn't like zombies, Halloweens. I just never really bought into them. Um, they were just there, that kind of way. I put them on and I watched them and I was like, yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah.
But
I
yet
think
I'll sit,
if
but yet
the
I'll
fan,
sit and watch all the wrong turns over and over and over again,
yeah,
and I'm like, and people hate on them as well. So like everyone's choice of whether they like it or they don't like it.
yeah.
That's
Everybody's
the
got
best thing about movies.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, really, I guess the box office says it all, right? I mean, if a movie does well, it might do well the first weekend and then die off the second weekend uh, because everybody hates it, kind of thing. A lot of anticipation and whatnot. But if it's hanging on and people are going to see it weekend after weekend, it's got some juice. It's got something going for it that fans want.
I seen it 3 times in the cinema
Which
at
Freddie,
12,
yeah,
at 12 years of age. Yeah,
yeah, it's funny. I mean, there's a whole new group of young Freddy versus Jason fans coming up. I mean, I see kids, that are 10 years old they love it, and I see
yeah.
people in their 80s that love it.
Like
Uh,
my son now, he hasn't seen any of it. He's only 7, but he
yeah,
knows the characters because obviously I've the tattoos on my arms. He
yeah,
knows the weapons. He knows what they're from. And then in certain games, like obviously Roblox has like Freddy versus Jason, and it has like Pennywise and stuff in it. So he's
yeah,
starting to know all these horror characters growing up, and I'm like, I like where this is going.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's great. I'm just amazed that we're 20 years out from when the movie came out, and people are still in love with that movie, and that speaks really
But
well.
it was the first real crossover, that wasn't it? It was that
Uh,
one that
for
changed the
the,
game.
yeah, for them, but I mean, we crossover is natural. Like I say, you got the werewolf, and
It was
versus
that was a
the
bit slightly different, though, wasn't it? Because they were all owned by Universal.
yeah. I just mean the crossover movies aren't anything new, and that
Oh
is
yeah,
uh,
it was
uh,
it was a different type of crossover for slashers that hadn't been done.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
guess yeah.
but
Slash,
like
yeah. Slashers belong till what? Till the 80s, and uh, otherwise we
boy, what a good time it was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just conscious of the time. I know you've other places to be, so I don't want to hold you too long.
No worries.
Um, so what we'll do is I'll give you a couple of quick fire questions and then we'll get you out of here.
Okay.
Uh, what is your favorite horror movie?
My favorite part of
It
the
can't be
movie.
Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, sorry.
No,
My
what's your
favorite.
favorite horror movie?
Oh, my favorite horror movie. Um, Probably I got two. One you might not think of as a horror movie, but to me it was Jaws, and the other
Okay.
was
The closest to a near perfect movie.
Yeah, it was well, I don't think Spielberg would have believed you at the time, but now, yeah. Uh, uh, yes, I love that movie, and I saw it in the theater, and it ruined me for life with sharks. I went cage diving with great white sharks off Australia at Port Lincoln,
Nope.
and being a stuntman, I learned to trust. You learn to trust the equipment and stuff. So, being in a cage in the water with great white sharks is a completely different story. I would run on water if I was anywhere near open water with a great white shark. But no,
Now,
that definitely.
did you do the Quint speech before you got in the cage? What's that
No,
for? It's a cage,
no,
shark cage.
I
Cage goes
didn't.
in the water. You go
Yeah,
in the water. Cage in the water. Sharks in the water.
felt like that now and then because what they do is they throw this bait out on a line and they drag it towards the cage. And if it's at the right height where the opening of the cage is, the sharks get their noses in there. And
I've
you could,
seen I've seen a video where a shark actually got into one.
yes, I saw that before I went cage diving with.
That'd be terrifying.
I
I
was
love
very,
sharks, but nope.
I was very cognizant of that possibility. And at one, a shark did get its nose in there, and I was already headed for the hatch. But,
What did you say the second movie was?
was The Exorcist.
Oh,
Yeah.
contentious one.
Well, I was raised a Roman Catholic, and I was an altar boy, and I'm not really a practicing Roman Catholic anymore, but you get raised in that, and then you see a movie like that at a young, impressionable age, and it's definitely scary.
Possession movies for me, they're probably the lower end of the horror scale for me, and
Exorcist,
I understand the significant cultural impact it had for horror, and I wouldn't take that away from it. For me, it's just there. Do you know what I mean? I
yeah,
wouldn't say it's a terrible movie. I wouldn't say it's a fantastic movie.
yeah. I think you tend to imprint on things that the first experiences you have. So when you saw The Exorcist, how old were you?
Probably about 14.
14, yeah. So what other horror movies had you seen before that?
I'd seen Nightmare on Elm Street. I'd seen Friday the 13th. I'd seen loads. Any ones
Right.
that were on Channel 4 and stuff. I'd seen other ones. I'd seen the likes of Brain Dead.
So,
Uh,
and you mentioned that Nightmare on Elm Street was your favorite horror movie, right? So you saw Nightmare on Elm Street. You kind of imprinted on that.
yeah,
So, actually, The Exorcist didn't have as much an effect on you, whereas I
different.
saw this before I saw Elm Street when I was even younger, and so that's why it had an effect on me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I never looked at it that way. I've always kind of leaned. Now, creature features are my favorite type of horror. Um, but I've always leaned sort of slashers and things. Possession movies are just
I hear
there.
that slasher movies are getting a resurgence these days.
Yeah, there's a Eli Roth's bringing out a new one now at the end of the year called Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Mutilator 2 is coming out, and Mutilator 1 is one of my favorite. The what?
Yeah. Well, there you go. We got one for every holiday.
Yeah, yeah. And then one of my favorite ones from the 80s was a film called The Mutilator, and
Oh,
Mutilator 2.
for
Mutilator
that.
2 is coming out this year.
That was a machine that had a life of its own, and
No, no, no. This one's a beachfront slasher movie.
the Mutilator. Oh, okay. I got it wrong then.
No, it might be it might be called Fall Break over there.
Okay. I'm not
Um,
familiar.
there was there was an
I've heard
original name.
the Mutilator. Yeah.
Buddy Cooper directed it in I think it was '83. It came out in '84.
Right.
But it's about a group of friends to go to a beachfront house, and one of the lads dies, is killing everyone.
Yeah.
But it's one of them slashers. You see who the slasher is in the first instance, and
Yeah.
then it's just what happens after that.
Right. Right.
Um, but before I let you go, then, have you got any upcoming projects you'd like to have a chat about or let us know about?
No, not really. Nothing upcoming at the moment. I'm off to Minneapolis for a convention this coming weekend. So
Nice.
Ireland wants to fly over for a visit. Come over to Minnesota.
You come to the one in the UK at some stage. I'm too
Yeah,
poor. I'm too poor.
I was supposed to get over to the UK this year, but the show ended up canceling. But
Oh,
yeah, what was I? I was in Ireland a while back, but yeah, I get over there every once in a while.
well, next time you're coming over, let us know. We can show you around.
All right, sounds good.
Um, but for now, then, Ken, I don't want to keep you all day. I'd love to sit here and pick through your IMDb, but I know you're under a bit of time pressure, so we do thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome.
And if you have the chance again in the future, we'll get you back on and we'll pick through some of your other movies.
That sounds good. Well,
Yeah,
when I have more time, yeah, that'd be good.
absolutely. All the best with the convention in Minneapolis.
Thank
Viking fans will be happy now. I think they're winning at the minute, so
All right.
might make a few happier faces. But for now, I'll finish this the way I finish every single Friday night. In the words of the great George A. Romero, ladies and gentlemen, stay scared.